Welcome back. In this video, I'm covering how to request IRS fines and penalties to be removed from your account using Form 843. So whether you maybe weren't able to file Form 1040 for a while because life got hectic and things were happening, or maybe you are an S-corp business owner like so many people on my channel, you've elected S-corp status and you didn't realize that you were supposed to pay yourself as an employee. And so you're getting that caught up. In either situation, those are two very common scenarios where you're most likely going to be assessed penalties and interest because you late filed your individual or payroll tax forms. And in this video, I'll be showing you exactly how to request to the IRS to remove those penalties and interest for you. If you're new here, my name's Amanda. You're watching The Business Finance Coach, where I simplify all of these technicalities of business to help you succeed because I truly believe that the world needs what you have to offer. If you're new here and this sounds good to you, consider subscribing while still watching this video and hitting the bell to be notified for new videos. So before we jump into the Form 943 and I show you exactly how to request the penalties and interest removed, first let's talk about how often does the IRS actually remove these fines and penalties? Should you even do this? Well, as long as you don't have a history of the IRS assessing fines and penalties, then yes, you have a good chance of the IRS agreeing to remove at least the penalty portion. And that's what I'll be covering in the form when I show you how to fill it out, is how to remove the penalty. So as long as you don't have a long history getting all sorts of fines and penalties, it's likely that they're going to remove them, especially if in the situation where you're getting caught up and maybe filing multiple 1040s or multiple payroll tax forms. And so the penalty can be a little bit bigger in that scenario. And you're trying to do the right thing and get in the system. And so the IRS doesn't want to penalize you. They want to encourage people to do that. So it's likely that they will forgive penalties. Now, the interest, they typically will not forgive unless it's the IRS's fault. And by that, we need to talk about the letter that you've probably received if you're watching this video. So once you file late forms and make your payments, the IRS will send you a letter. And that typically comes very promptly because it's highly automated in the IRS to assess those fines and penalties. And they only send them through the mail in a letter. You will not get a phone call or anything like that. There's a lot of scams out there, so don't fall for those. You will get a letter, and that typically comes right away. If for some reason the IRS does not send you that letter for a very extended period of time, maybe a few months, a year, then that's the scenario where you want to request the interest to be removed as well, because there's a lot more interest due to the IRS's delay in assessing those fines and penalties to your account. Okay, makes sense? So without further ado, let's jump into Form 943 and I'll show you exactly how to fill out the form that allows you to request the IRS to remove the penalty and interest if you have that less common situation. So here we are in Form 843. This is the IRS form, claim for refund and request for abatement. Now this will be linked in the description below. And to get started, it's a very short form. It's one page. We'll get through it really quickly. You're going to put in your name and your address. And if you're questioning like your name, if you're a business, look at the form, the letter that the IRS sent you with your penalties and look at what they're referencing on the form. That can be helpful. If your address has changed, you want to put your current address so that they can communicate with you about this request. But you'll also put names and addresses if they're different based on what they were on the return down here. So if it's changed, put what was on the actual return down here so that they can match it and be sure that the penalty removal, hopefully, is applied to your correct account. Over here on the right, you have Social Security number, spouse's Social Security number, EIN, if applicable for a business, and you want to put your current telephone number. Next, under number 1, you're going to put the period for which the penalty is related. And this brings up a great point, as they say here, you need to do a separate Form 843 for each penalty. So you can't apply, be requesting more than one penalty on the same form. You're going to do multiple Form 843s. So I've filled this out based on my example for the small business owners who are catching up past payroll tax forms. So in that example, it's the beginning of 2020. Let's say you got caught up for 2019 filing your past payroll tax forms. So if we're looking at the first one you filed for 2019, a payroll period would have been 1/1/2019 to 3/31/2019. Now, if you caught up a Form 1040 and there's a penalty related to that, you would just put, January 1st of whatever year, 12/31 of whatever year. Next, you're going to put the amount over here. I put $100. You want to put whatever is on your letter, the actual amount of the penalty, not the total with interest, only the penalty. Under number 3, you're going to select the type of tax or fee. Now, in this case, it's employment taxes. If you're catching up at 1040, it would be income taxes. Number 4, the type of penalty. Now, this one's is a little trickier to understand, but IRC section number. You're going to see IRC section and a number on your letter that applied the interest and penalty, and you need to put the number of that IRC section here. That's the code section, Internal Revenue Code section, under which they have the authority to apply a penalty. 5A is interest, penalty, and additions to tax. Now, one thing to be clear about in these two common scenarios that we're talking about penalty and interest. That's not tax, right? If you had additional tax applied in either of these situations, we'd be dealing with possibly amending your return, but not this form, okay? That only applies to other situations. For those two common situations I've been going over, the 1040 and payroll, this only applies for interest and penalties, so don't let those little words confuse you. So here we need to check the box for the reason that we're filling out this form. So generally, you're going to select the third option for a penalty removal. Now, if you have that rare situation where the IRS took a long time to apply the penalty and interest, then you could fill this out checking the first box, which says interest was assessed as a result of IRS error or delay. Otherwise, for the penalty removal, it's this third option, and then they want the date of payment. And they're talking about payment of the penalty, which is why it's the start of February. So I put February 1st, 2020. After you got the interest letter, you need to actually pay that before you can request for it to be removed. What if you don't have the money? If you don't have the money, you can set up a payment plan, and I'll include a link below to the IRS site where you can call or do that online, and then you could just put that information in here. Number 6, they want to know the original return that you filed that the penalty is related to. And this should also be listed on your letter applying the penalty and interest. So in this case, it would be a quarterly tax form, employer tax form, Form 941. If it was a 1040, like regular 1040 income tax, you'd select 1040. Lastly is number 7. This is where we put our explanation. What happened? Why do you believe that you need to get this penalty refunded? And so I included a kind of standard, really quick way that I would say it for a lot of S-corp owners. I hired a professional to elect S-corp status. They didn't tell me I needed to do payroll. I kept researching and trying to find a professional or get my accounting in order, and I learned that I did need to be doing this, and so I got everything caught up as fast as I could, and I don't have past penalties, and I stay in compliance. I try to do the right thing. I've figured this out. I'm caught up. I would so appreciate it if these penalties were removed. Now, you may have a different scenario. Let's say you didn't file a 1040 for many years. Maybe you say something like, I was under immense personal distress and I allowed this to slip by because I didn't think I owed taxes. I didn't think I had to file. I wasn't sure. I couldn't deal with it. I've gotten my life back together and I've caught everything up. That could be appropriate if that's the truth, you know? And then say I had never, you know, gotten fines and penalties in the past, or you don't even need to say that, but whatever. You can see it's a realistic way of just explaining the situation. I don't think you need to go into too much detail, but if you do need another piece of paper, then be sure to put your name and social security number on it as well, the information from up here. Be sure to put that at the top so that it doesn't get lost from your form when it's processed. Lastly, you need to sign this down here. Sign, date. If you have a spouse, sign, date if they were on the same tax return as well. And then this bottom section is only used if you pay someone to do this for you. And if you pay someone to do this for you, they should definitely fill out this section as well. So that's all for how to fill out the form. Now the last step is, where do you mail this form? Well, for the examples that I've covered for income tax and payroll tax, you'll use the address on the letter you got assessing penalties and interest. So that letter has the address that it will say to send response to, and that's where you'll send the form 943. And that is all. I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Again, if you're new here, consider subscribing. I do give away a free business spreadsheet template if you need help with your accounting and taxes and you want to get organized. Check that out. Links are in the description below. It goes over basic accounting, quarterly taxes, and end of year taxes. And there's an entire free training with videos that walk you through how to use each worksheet. So I'd love for you to get a hold of that if that would be helpful to you. Otherwise, check out any of my other videos that may be showing around here that you might find helpful. And I hope to see you next time. Bye.